Welcome to Murderabilia Exposed. I'm Andrew.
I'm Taylor.
And today we're going to be talking about self-care, which I think is something that not a lot of people talk about in everyday life, especially the murderabilia and true crime world being we take in so much dark shit, on a daily basis that I feel like self-care is just as important as everyday shit we do with our businesses, or whether it be the podcast or cult collectibles or true crime auction house, because as you know, taking in all this dark shit nonstop 24/7 can weigh on your psyche and mental health and all that.
Sure.
So
well, I mean, if I could do a little introduction thing here, I think that with true crime stuff specifically, there's kind of a big culture of like, baby Yoda memes where it's like me relaxing and listening to true crime podcasts, and my coworkers think that I'm not listening to something spooky, but I really am. It's like this weird culture of like, I put this stuff on to relax, as if it's kind of like a badge of honor for a lot of people to be like, I don't get affected by this stuff. It's not problematic for me. I'm used to fucked up shit, and which is valid if that's how you feel about it. But I think that when somebody is collecting a little more intensely, or especially with us working with it so closely, like this is all I deal with all day, every single day, right? And you in the same way, talking to inmates, and not only that aspect of it, but scheduling and tracking down items and buying and selling and shipping items. Like there's just, when every single part of your life kind of revolves around that, it can be pretty intense.
yeah, it can definitely get stressful. It could be a good stress sometimes. Like I know you have some stuff you're going through right now with your website, and as much as you love doing it, I'm sure it gets stressful from time to time, and you have to kind of just say fuck everything sometimes and just get some type of self-release going on, whether it's like hiking or video games or whatever anybody does to release their little world. And being that this is true crime, I feel like this is one of those fields where you have to practice self-care, or otherwise you're gonna just get drugged down to and get beaten to shit.
Yeah, for sure. I guess this is probably going to be resolved by the time we release this, but to kind of mention the website thing a bit, like I do for Call Collectibles, all the YouTube stuff, all the social media, all the email communication, all the media stuff. And then I guess most importantly, all the buying and selling and shipping of items, right? And I do that through online platforms. And the kind of uptake in, well, first of all, I was a bit blindsided by the Dahmer stuff popping off right after the new Netflix series. I didn't realize how big of a draw that was going to have. But yeah, that's gotten really huge and been good for business, but it's unfortunately caused some issues with the site where I was flagged for possible fraud because of the volume of sales. And I've been using this platform for like 3 or 4 years, right? But they just wanted to reconfirm everything. So it was about a 2-week appeal process of sending them more and more and more documents to prove I was actually selling and shipping items. And then as soon as that got cleared up, and I was like, cool, stress is over, then they flagged my site for some other stuff for, I guess, because I had mystery boxes listed, and that is considered like a lottery or gambling in a way, which is fair. I didn't really take that into account, but it's against our terms of service. So I think because I was on high alert, that got flagged as well, and then so they completely shut down the credit services. I mean, the site's still up, PayPal still works fine, and people can use their credit cards through PayPal and pay, and that's not a problem. Just direct credit payments are on halt for the moment, which I'm appealing. And when I look at it rationally, it will get appealed. Like there's no reason why it wouldn't. I'm following the terms of service in every other way, but it's still stressful as like I guess a similar comparison for having like a more regular job as being like you break an arm and you're off work for 2 weeks, or something comes up and you have to miss a big chunk of work, and then it's like, well, what do I do? Am I going to make money? Is the momentum going to stay consistent? So there's been stress from that, but which I have been balancing a lot with just like alone time, just like relaxing time, doing whatever kind of recreational stuff. If I didn't, I think I'd be like sick and dead by now. I gotta you got to really pump the brakes sometimes for this.
Yeah, yeah, I used to not take any time to myself. I used to literally do this 24/7, 365, and
Mm,
I'd maybe take one day a month to just do something fun or just turn my phone off or whatever. But now it's you got to do that once a week now because I have inmates calling me as early as like 4 or 5 a.m. sometimes and
mm,
late as like 9 or 10 o'clock at night sometimes. And like a few days ago, I shut my phone off and was like, I'm not taking any calls or responding to any texts or whatever.
yeah.
Like I have two phones. One phone is for inmates. One phone is like for like personal stuff, and the inmate phone
Mm,
is always getting shut off at least like once a week to
yeah.
decompress and whatever. Because no matter what, I'm sure it's the same thing with you. Is no matter what you do, how no matter how late you stay up, you're still gonna have shit to do
Oh,
the next
100%.
day and so on and so like you can never get caught up.
Mm. Well, that's the thing is that, I mean, that's the good and bad thing is that on the one hand, it's good to always have different options of what to do. I can film a YouTube video, edit a YouTube video, do research people that I want to contact or things I might be looking to buy. Pack orders, ship orders, list orders. There's just unlimited things to do. So I'm able to kind of switch it up a lot and have variety, but at the same time, it's like there's no defined place to stop with it. Like tonight, I'm going to be shipping some more orders after this or packing some more orders, and I won't be able to get all of them packed in the evening. But it's kind of like, is it worth staying up the entire night to get them packed, or is it worth shipping some of them a week later, which is not the biggest difference in time. I think the biggest thing that I feel for a time crunch, or a thing that kind of puts a lot of the stress on me specifically, is getting orders fulfilled, because when I have a busy week, it's I had to pack everything, label it, buy the shipping online, bring it to a place to ship it. um, it's a long process, and orders are constantly coming in, and that's great. But people almost have an expectation that every business should be running like Amazon, where it's like 2 days later you get the thing. And I'll do that for any items over a couple $1,000s, right? I'll do like high priority insured tracked shipping with the signature. I'll do like every single thing to make it like get out as soon as possible, get to the person. But when I have 30 people order $20 to $40 items, and then 2 days later are saying, hey, where's my tracking, where's the item, why hasn't it shipped yet? It's a lot to keep up with. People are really used to, I think, bigger operations, and for solo person e-commerce stuff, it kind of uh on the one hand, it's great to be able to order office supplies and get them the next day if I need them. But on the other hand, everybody's expecting that level of service for themselves for every purchase anywhere, right? uh yeah, and as things grow, it just gets harder to keep up with that, and people seem to get more frustrated with it. But it's one of the biggest things I try and work on, not letting it bother me, because obviously in this kind of field or industry, I guess, there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of negative feedback from people. So um if there's something I can cut out from that, it's obviously worth doing.
In regards to the shipping, I choose 2 days a week to ship packages myself. Like I don't go to the post office every single day because there's orders coming in all the time, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
if I stopped and fulfilled every single order as it came in, like I would have no time during the day. I usually go on like a Monday and a Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and you get those occasional orders where like if it's not shipped the next day, you already got a claim filed less than 24 hours later, which is always kind of fun to deal with. But
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I ship once a week. On Mondays, it's either once a week or once every 2 weeks. I would say that um usually it's every week. I'll skip maybe 1 week a month just for scheduling stuff. But I have like a lot of sales for it right now. For instance, I'll bring it up here on my computer so I can give you the exact number, because I was looking at it today and it was like, this is ridiculous. Since my last shipment that went out, I have currently pending. And this is just to give me the relief of letting people know how ridiculous this can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 20, 24, 140 orders uh, since the last time I shipped, which was a week and a half ago. So I got to, individually find, pack, put into inventory or take out of inventory 140 different items. get them shipped all around the world to different places, use different shipping services for each one. Um, yeah, it's a ton of stuff, and it's exciting and it's great. I'm glad that I'm like successful in this and that I've got a client base who wants to buy stuff and who, well, most people are totally happy waiting a little bit of time, right? If things are backlogged, but um, it's always going to be a balance. I think in the true crime jobs or any independent work or any real job or like not real, but like regular jobs that people would have, it's the same kind of balance. I think the thing that wears on this specifically more, which is what you were mentioning earlier, is the fact that it's the true crime aspect, is that, I mean, you're personally talking to inmates on the phone all the time. I've had some inmates that I talked to a lot or written to a lot, and then I've got, you know, all these items that I have to read through and categorize, and it's a lot of dark, heavy stuff. And that it adds up, that builds up over time.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when I get new things like letters and anything that's like paper stuff, I never read any of this shit. I just take photos or scan stuff and just throw it in a notebook. And whenever I sell it, I just put it in a package, mail it off, and I never really invest in reading stuff unless it's something like Dahmer, Bundy, or
Mm-hmm.
Gacy, or the more like heavy hitter names.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is for me. Like, I personally prefer to buy larger collections at once, the more stuff that I can at once. For me, it's not worth spending $100 to buy like 15 random letters and then relisting those for $15 each to make a bit of a profit. Um, I'm usually after, like I talked about the Charles Manson collection I bought a while ago, but that was like 10 grand for a binder full of stuff. So that was like interesting to look through. I had to categorize it all specifically because each of those items is worth quite a bit and there was a good profit margin, right? But yeah, when it comes to smaller stuff, like I just have stacks and stacks and stacks of things that, eventually a lot of it ends up going in like a freebie pile where I throw things in free with large orders because it's just not worth the time on certain items to be that thorough with them.
Yeah, 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 totally. There's been instances where there's been like $10, $15 items. I've spent hours and hours looking for them, and I'm like, you know what, fuck this. I'm just gonna refund this order because I can't find it. Sometimes I just get so
Yeah.
frustrated trying to find small things, or
Mm-hmm.
there'll be things that I've traded or sold on Instagram that I forget to mark sold on my website, which sometimes gets me in a little bit of hot water, but
Mm-hmm.
you're only human at the end of the day and can do
Oh
what
yeah.
you can do.
Well, the thing for me that I've kind of done to deal with that best is, and I mean, this is based on, 3 years of experience and 3 years of being able to build stuff up, right? But it was the same thing when I was doing reselling on eBay, where I would buy like anything at the thrift store that I saw that I could make a few dollars on, like 5, 6, 7 bucks that I knew had some value. And I would list everything, go through, take all this time. And then it got to the point where it's like, well, um, I could sell 100 items for $10 each, make $1,000, or I could sell, 5 items for $100 each, and they're probably going to take longer to sell, but it's going to make more money in the end, and it's going to take less work to get that done, right? So I sort of over the years have kind of try and go through and skim off lower value things as I go, not to like push anybody out who wants to buy lower value items or anything, but just to be able to you know, I prefer to sell if I have 10 letters from one random inmate that aren't worth very much, maybe I'll bundle 10 together, right? And then it'll be worth the time to sell those like that. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of constantly looking how to bundle things or how to just make things a little more efficient so that only for the reason that things just go faster and easier and things get out faster to people and then I can get new inventory in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And in regards to the small things, ever since that Dahmer series came out, I had these little like I don't know if you've seen them, but they're little like 4x6 Christopher Scarver displays, and I've been selling those like hotcakes ever since that
Mm.
Dahmer series came out. And before the Dahmer series came out, I maybe sold like five of them, and I probably sold like 20 of them in the past week. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's on a little bit of a side note, I guess. A lot of people think, oh, something comes on Netflix, so it's going to be worth a ton of money, right? Somebody a while ago emailed me some Richard Ramirez drawings he wanted to sell, and he was asking like $1,500 each. And I said, hey, I'm going to pass because I've sold similar drawings in the past, and I sold them for like 7, 8, $900. If I pay 1,500, there's no way I'm going to make more than that, right? Like I got to pay, $400 so I can maybe try and make 800 because in the end I'm only making a percentage of that because of fees and taxes and stuff. But that person specifically emailed me back, and he was like, that's hilarious. I'm so like, how can you be running a business in this industry? You're so dumb. There's no way that you'd ever be successful in this. And it's like, well, the reason that I gave you this information is because that's literally what I've been doing for the past 3 years, you know. And if you're just emailing a reseller, like a middleman site like me, trying to sell those things, uh, why wouldn't you go somewhere else to try and sell them for the higher price? You know, like if I'm my numbers are so off, why not sell those to somebody else who's willing to pay it? You know, because the market for people for those things isn't necessarily there, and people I think have a lot of assumptions of, oh, this particular thing adds value, or because of this book, or because of this popular podcast, this thing is worth more. And there isn't a direct correlation like that. You know, it's the Dahmer thing has obviously increased the popularity in the Dahmer stuff, but I wouldn't say the value's gone up. I'd say the popularity's gone up. I've sold more things, but at the same prices I was selling before. Uh, and I mean, I'm sure there's some things I could raise the price a little bit on, but you know, there wasn't really much of Dahmer specifically, and Scarver for that matter. There wasn't really much out there to begin with, so getting that stuff sold is going to happen regardless. When things pick up, it just might not mean that it's worth a lot more money all of a sudden.
Right. And people always think that rare means expensive, which is always not the
Yeah.
case, as well. Like you could have the only thing in the world existing if it's like a niche market, like this, like say you're selling it for like $2,000 when somebody thinks it's maybe like 200,000 because it's the, one of a kind. Like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always work like that. As Pawn Stars is a great, indicator of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, like to use a specific example, I've had people a lot of times offer to sell me Keith Jesperson art, and what they're saying, oh, this is a custom thing I had done by Keith Jesperson. I'm selling it for $200, $250, and that's the same price that you can buy art from him directly for and get whatever you want made. You know, like for me, if I wanted to get a horror painting from him, I could buy it from somebody for that price, sure, but I could also get him to do a Pogo the Clown painting for the same price, and that's going to have more value because more people are going to want that. But unless one of those people realizes, oh, I can just write him and get him to do this for me, right? Um, People have kind of this perception that, yeah, specific things like if he has a letter with a little smiley face drawn on it, they're like, oh, it's worth so much more. It's like, yeah, but somebody has to specifically want a letter from him that happens to have that. And if there's 1,000 letters out there with a signature for $20, and then one that has a smiley face for 100, nobody's going to pick that one up, you know?
Right, right, exactly. It's all about, quantity and quality, really. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
um let's see. So yeah, so we talked a little bit about self-care. What
Mm-hmm.
before we get out of here on this episode, do you want to talk a little bit about some things that you do to keep yourself, calm and cool, and especially with everything that's going on with your website right now too,
Mm-hmm.
like what do you do what do you do to keep busy from like shutting down or like
Yeah.
freaking out or whatever?
Well, I mean, right now specifically is like I would have things to do every single day for the next 2 months straight if I wanted to put the energy into it, which I physically can't, right? Um, I'm kind of been forcing myself to pace myself on it because I know that it'll burn out really quick if I go try and do everything all at once. I when I first started was working pretty much 7 days a week, and I would do like maybe 8 to 10 hours a day, and then spend my free time just relaxing, watching Netflix or whatever as a balance. But I've found that when I have days completely off, where I don't do any work, as opposed to doing 7 days a week, I'll do 4 or 5 days a week, but I'll do like 12 to 15-hour days and be more motivated and inspired to work because I had days off to refresh, right? So the biggest thing for me has been adjusting to having actual weekends. And that might not happen over the weekend. It might be a couple random days in the week, but taking a couple days off in a row has been super beneficial to just productivity for the business, right? And to my mental health. Um, in that time when I'm doing that, I camp a lot. This summer I went camping a ton, more than I have in years because I just where I live is great spots around here. Um, I I'm a very like low, kind of like easily satisfied person. You know, I like to go and have like a burger and a few beers and play pinball for a minute. Just like very simple, easy, cheap tasks. I don't really have any extravagant things that I like to do. I don't really go on crazy vacations or anything. Like I literally, when I have a day off, I'll just and I could watch a movie at home, hang around for a bit, and then go to the bar for a couple hours, or hang out with a buddy for a few minutes, and then go back home and go to bed early. Uh, it's almost like for me personally, I almost treat my days off as if they were work nights and I was working the next day, even if I had the next day off, so that the next day I don't wake up kind of exhausted and feeling gross, and I can kind of, um, you know, have an even more relaxed day then, and then be back in the routine, as opposed to going really hard and then trying to dial it back and um, readjust.
Yeah, that's how I am too. I'm pretty chill and pretty,
Mm,
you can put anything in front of me and I'm, pretty content, and I don't really take any extravagant vacations. When I do take
yeah.
vacations, it's always like true crime, getting content, whatever. I haven't
Mm,
taken a real vacation, I guess, since Disneyland with my family, but besides that, I can't think of any like vacations I've taken in more recent years. But
mm.
yeah,
Hey, from my perspective, I wasn't trying to sound like I'm complaining and like, oh, I can't do anything or go anywhere. I just meant to say that, yeah, I'm like, even those simple little things have been a huge change in my like stress levels and my ability to get work done, the productivity, because it's just, I'll be as refreshed after a couple days of just laying around and not reading books and playing pinball as I would be if I went away to like Mexico for a week, right? Like I get the same kind of relaxation from just really simple stuff. I know some people kind of have to distance themselves really far to be able to get that relaxation, but for me, I've always been lucky that, I live within my means very well. I don't have an extravagant lifestyle where I have a certain standard to keep up to. I just like to keep things very mellow.
yeah, keeping it mellow is definitely the way to go.
Mm,
Keep the stress levels down, and just do your thing and keep your
mm,
circle small, and the problems are minimal to none, really.
yeah. And this, I mean, applies to people who are collecting murderabilia or true crime stuff, or just like absorbing a lot of the content, watching documentaries and reading books and listening to podcasts, or even people who have like a small interest in it and every once in a while like to try and look at some stuff or watch some YouTubers or whatever. It's like, I think people don't realize, because it's presented as such entertainment these days, how heavy some of that stuff is, and it can kind of build up in you without you realizing. You need to sort of filter that out sometimes and take a step back from the like negative content, even if it doesn't feel like it's having a negative effect on you. Like try and be aware that, that the meme culture of like, oh, I just like true crime, and everyone thinks I'm weird, but for me it's so chill. Like all that weird culture around that is pretty, I think it gets people in a mindset where it's like they belong to this community of like elite, cool people who don't get affected by heavy stuff and almost push themselves into that a little too far. Whereas, if you take a step back and look at it, it's like, okay, well, these are bad things. And maybe I should be a little respectful of like how much of this I'm going to consume.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, yes, I mean, true crime is heavy in general. I was always like numb to true crime, but now I'm like more of an emotional person, with
Mm-hmm.
almost 13 years of consuming all this stuff. Like I really can't watch these like best gore videos anymore or anything like that. Like I've become so desensitized that I don't even really like seeing this stuff anymore, as crazy as it seems.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's just it's just a good thing in general. Uh, I know we didn't hit too many super specific self-care things, because I think that there's a lot of information on that stuff out there already. But I think it's almost good to present this in a as like a warning of like, hey, take a breath and take a step back, because this stuff can get heavy, and it's not good to live off of this content all the time every single day.
Yeah, especially mental health wise. I mean, it could
Oh
definitely
yeah.
affect your mental health. Look what happened to Jason Moss. I mean, he was a
Mm-hmm.
best-selling author, and then he ended up taking his life because I assume he couldn't take everything that he was, having thrown at him at the time and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I always look at it like, I know a lot of people say like you're a man, you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't, ask for help, whatever, but I think that's bullshit. I think the
Mm-hmm.
mental health stigma is like completely bullshit. I think if you want to cry, cry. If you want to reach out for help, reach out for help. If you want to break shit, break shit. Just as long as you're not hurting anybody,
Mm-hmm.
do what you got to do.
Yeah, just like it's good to take a step back sometimes and realize like, oh, I've only been doing this for so long, or I'm sure somebody who's a mechanic who's also a fan of cars doesn't go to work, build cars all day, fix cars all day, then go home and talk about cars, and then drive cars all weekend, and then go back to work and do, like, you gotta at some point take a breather and do other stuff, right, to maintain your sanity. It goes for anything, and true crime specifically is one that I think is a little more extreme, where it's like, uh, you really need to be a little weary when you're revolving your whole life around something that can be so dark and grisly and gruesome.
Right, especially with the company that you keep too, because like
Mhm.
when I lived in Washington, all my friends, all they ever wanted to do was like use me to like pick my brain or like invite their friends over to introduce me to them, and like that's cool and all, but if I want to like hang out with somebody, I don't want to talk about crime or
Yeah.
focus everything around crime the whole time. Like I don't want to be
Mhm.
that one weird friend that you pull out just to ask questions and pick your brain and be like, okay, all right, see you later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I specifically have been very cautious about that when it comes to spending time with people or getting to know people. Um, and I get, adjacency sometimes where it'll come up like, oh, this is what Taylor does, and then they're like, oh, that's crazy. Tell me about this and that and this, and that. It happens every once in a while, and it's fine. But the kind of people that I know well that are close in my life aren't, trying to use that as any kind of cool points or use that to hype me up in any way. They're just respectful of the fact that, yeah, it's just my job. Similar thing with people who like do tattoos. Everyone just wants to talk about their tattoo ideas or what tattoos they like or what tattoos they have, and it's like, yeah, it's great, but this is just a person with a job. Like, they have a different life outside of just that.
Right, right. Um, well, I think we can get out of here unless you have anything else to add, in regards to self-care and anything else we've been talking about.
No, I think that kind of covers it for now. Like I said, we didn't get into specifics like you should do this or try and do that or time it this way, but yeah, I think it's good to definitely have like a um just a signal out there to somebody like, hey, maybe if you're only thriving or surviving on this kind of content, true crime content specifically, ease up a little bit sometimes. Realize that, like, you're not going to lose any cool points by being into something else. You're not going to lose cool points by like watching some cartoons or playing a video game or reading a book or just distancing yourself from the heavy stuff.